But this wasn't just any funeral procession. Leading the way was a hearse, which is the special car that carries the coffin, followed by several other cars carrying Ozzy's family members. The procession was heading to a very special place, the Black Sabbath Bridge and Bench, which had been created to honor Ozzy and his band. This spot had already become a place where fans gathered to remember Ozzy. Ever since he passed away, people had been bringing flowers, leaving notes, and taking pictures there. It was like a shrine that grew naturally because people needed a place to express their love for him. But what made this procession truly special was what happened along the way. Thousands and thousands of people lined the streets. They were wearing black t-shirts, many with Black Sabbath logos or pictures of Ozzy on them. Some people held signs with lyrics from his most famous songs, like, "I am Iron Man." Others just stood quietly, showing their respect for a man who had meant so much to them. As the procession moved through the streets, a local brass band called Boston Brass played music to honor Ozzy. Picture this: the sound of horns and trumpets filling the air, mixing sadness with celebration, while thousands of people watched the hearse carrying one of the greatest rock stars who ever lived. It was like something out of a movie, but it was real, and it was happening because an entire city wanted to say thank you to one of their own. The Lord Mayor of Birmingham, whose name is Councillor Zurich Ball, spoke about why the city felt it was so important to do this for Ozzy. He said that Ozzy was more than just a music legend. He was a son of Birmingham, someone who had brought honor and fame to the city by showing the world what people from Birmingham could achieve. Just a month before Ozzy died, he and the other members of Black Sabbath had received something called the Freedom of the City Award. This is basically the highest honor that Birmingham can give to someone, and it's reserved for people who have done incredible things to make the city proud. The timing of this award makes it even more special, because it shows that Birmingham recognized how important Ozzy was while he was still alive to appreciate it. The city's leader also said, "We're proud to host this with his loving family in the place where it all began." Those words are really meaningful because they show that Birmingham never forgot that Ozzy was one of their own, a kid who grew up in their streets and went on to conquer the world. Now, here's something really beautiful about this whole event. Ozzy's family paid for everything themselves. His wife Sharon and his children Amy, Jack, and Kelly didn't want the city to worry about the cost of such a big event. They wanted to make sure that any fan who wanted to be part of saying goodbye to Ozzy could do so without the city having to spend money they might not have. But the family also thought about all the fans around the world who couldn't make it to Birmingham in person. So they arranged for the event to be live streamed on the internet. This meant that people everywhere, no matter where they lived, could watch the procession and be part of this final farewell. It was like Ozzy was giving everyone one last front row seat to his show. An entire city stopping everything it's doing, streets shutting down, thousands of people dressed in black, and a brass band playing music that echoes through the air. All of this happening just to say goodbye to one person. That's exactly what happened in Birmingham, England, when the world lost one of the greatest rock stars who ever lived. The Prince of Darkness himself, Ozzy Osbourne, left us on July 22nd at the age of 76, and what happened next was something nobody could have imagined. The city where he grew up didn't just give him a regular funeral. They gave him a celebration so massive, so incredible, that it looked more like the biggest rock concert ever thrown for someone's soul. Today, we're going to talk about everything that happened during Ozzy's final farewell. From his last words to his family, to the amazing funeral procession that brought an entire city to its knees, and all the beautiful moments that showed just how much this man meant to the world. If you're a fan of Ozzy Osbourne or Black Sabbath, or if you just love hearing stories about incredible people, you're going to want to stay until the very end of this video. But before we dive into this emotional journey, let's talk about what made Ozzy Osbourne so special in the first place. This wasn't just any rock star who passed away. This was the man who literally invented heavy metal music, the guy who took his pain and turned it into power, and someone who never forgot where he came from. Ozzy's real name was John Osbourne, and he was born on December 3, 1948, in a place called Aston, which is a rough part of Birmingham, England. When I say rough, I mean really tough. His family didn't have much money, and life was hard in ways that most of us can't even imagine. All the kids in his family had to share one bedroom. There was no privacy, no space to call your own, and definitely no fancy thin EGs that we take for granted today. As a kid, Ozzy struggled in school because he had something called dyslexia, which made reading and learning really difficult. He felt different from other kids, and by the time he was 15 years old, he decided to drop out of school completely. He thought maybe school just wasn't for him, so he went to work instead. He had all kinds of jobs that were pretty gross and tough. He worked in a slaughterhouse where animals were killed for meat, and he tested car horns in a factory. These weren't dream jobs by any means, but they were what he could get. During this time, Ozzy also got into some trouble with the law. He even got arrested once for breaking into a house and stealing things. It seemed like his life was heading in a really bad direction, and nobody would have guessed that this struggling kid from Birmingham would one day become one of the most famous people in the world. But then something magical happened. Music found Ozzy. Or maybe Ozzy found music. One day, he heard a song by the Beatles called She Loves You, sung by John Lennon, and it completely changed his life. In his own words, that song saved him. It showed him that music had this incredible power to make people feel things, to connect with others, and to turn sadness into something beautiful. Ozzy started practicing singing in his family's basement. He had a cheap microphone and a basic amplifier, nothing fancy at all, but he would spend hours down there, dreaming about becoming someone that people would remember, just like the Beatles. He imagined himself on stage, with crowds of people singing along to his songs. Most people probably thought he was just a dreamer. But Ozzy believed in himself. In 1968, when Ozzy was 20 years old, he met 3 other guys who loved music as much as he did. Their names were Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, and Bill Ward. These 4 young men from Birmingham decided to start a band together, and they called themselves Black Sabbath. None of them knew it at the time, but they were about to create something that had never existed before. Black Sabbath's music was different from anything anyone had ever heard. It was dark, heavy, and powerful in a way that made people feel like they were experiencing something completely new. Songs like Paranoid and Iron Man didn't just sound good. They sounded like they came from another world. Ozzy's voice was raw and haunting, like he was singing from his soul, and it became the heartbeat of this new kind of music that people started calling heavy metal. The band became incredibly famous, but success came with its own problems. The pressure of being rock stars, along with the lifestyle that came with it, started to take its toll on Ozzy. He began drinking too much alcohol and using drugs to cope with the stress and the pain he still carried from his difficult childhood. By 1979, his drinking and drug problems had gotten so bad that the other members of Black Sabbath decided they had to kick him out of the band he helped create. Most people thought that would be the end of Ozzy's career. After all, Black Sabbath was what made him famous. But instead of giving up, Ozzy decided to prove everyone wrong. He started a solo career, which means he began making music on his own instead of with a band. And guess what? He became even more successful than before. Songs like Crazy Train made Ozzy a superstar all over the world. He sold more than 100 million records during his career, which is an amazing number that most musicians can only dream of reaching. But it wasn't just his music that made him famous. Ozzy became known for doing wild and crazy things during his concerts that shocked people and made them talk. The most famous of these crazy moments happened when Ozzy bit the head off a bat during a live show. Yes, you heard that right. A real bat. It sounds gross and weird, but it became one of the most talked about moments in rock music history. Things like this earned him the nickname, the Prince of Darkness, and they made him a legend that people are still talking about today. But here's what made Ozzy really special. Even though he became incredibly famous and rich, He never forgot where he came from. He always remembered being that poor kid from Birmingham who felt different and struggled to fit in. This made him connect with fans who felt the same way, people who felt like outsiders or misfits. His music gave them a voice and made them feel like they belonged somewhere. As Ozzy got older, his health started to have serious problems. He was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, which is a condition that affects how your body moves and makes everyday tasks much harder. He had to have multiple surgeries, and there were times when people wondered if he would be able to perform any more. But Ozzy was a fighter. Even when his body was weak and he couldn't stand up on his own, he refused to give up on music. On July 5, 2025, just a few weeks before he passed away, Ozzy gave Birmingham one last incredible gift. He performed what he said would be his final concert at Villa Park, which is a famous stadium in his hometown. This wasn't just any regular concert. Some of the biggest names in rock music showed up to be part of it, including Metallica and Guns N' Roses. But even with all these amazing bands there, Ozzy stole the show. He was too weak to stand up during the performance, so he sang while sitting on a throne-like chair. But his voice, that powerful voice that had moved millions of people for decades, was still as strong as ever. The crowd of 45,000 people sang along to every word, and there wasn't a dry eye in the stadium. At the end of the show, Ozzy looked out at all those people and said, "Thank you from the bottom of my heart." There were tears in his eyes, and everyone knew they were witnessing something special. It was his way of saying goodbye to the city and the fans who had supported him for so many years. Just 17 days later, on July 22nd, the news that everyone had been dreading finally came. Ozzy's family shared with the world that their beloved father, husband, and grandfather had passed away. It is with more sadness than mere words can convey that we have to report that our beloved Ozzy Osbourne has passed away this morning. His family said in their statement. They also shared that he was with his family when he died and was surrounded by love. The news hit the world like a lightning bolt. Fans everywhere started posting old pictures, sharing their favorite lyrics, and lighting candles in memory of the man who had given them so much joy through his music. For someone who had lived such a loud and wild life, his death was actually quiet and peaceful, with his wife Sharon and his children by his side. But the story doesn't end there, because this is where Birmingham, Ozzy's hometown, stepped up in the most incredible way possible. The city decided that someone as important as Ozzy Osbourne deserved more than just a regular funeral. They planned something that had never been done before, a massive public funeral procession that would allow fans from all over the world to participate in saying goodbye to their hero. On July 30th, at exactly 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Birmingham time, the most amazing farewell began. The city shut down Broad Street, which is one of the main roads in Birmingham, just for Ozzy. A funeral procession, which is a formal parade of cars carrying someone who has died, slowly made its way through the streets. The Black Sabbath bridge and bench became the heart of the entire ceremony. This wasn't just a random place. It was chosen specifically because it represents Ozzy's connection to Birmingham and his music. Having the procession end there meant that a piece of Ozzy would always stay in the city where his journey began. As the procession reached its destination, something beautiful happened. The brass band played one final song, and everyone who was there felt like they were part of something much bigger than themselves. It wasn't just a funeral. It was a celebration of a life that had touched millions of people around the world. People who were there said they had never experienced anything like it. There was sadness, of course, because everyone was saying goodbye to someone they loved. But there was also pride, joy, and a sense of gratitude for everything Ozzy had given them through his music. After the public procession, Ozzy's family held a private funeral service. A family friend told reporters that this smaller ceremony was exactly what Ozzy would have wanted. It wasn't sad or depressing, but instead focused on celebrating his life with music and laughter. The way he lived. Sharon, Amy, Jack, and Kelly have talked about how grateful they are for all the love that has poured in from fans around the world. They've said that getting to spend those final weeks with Ozzy, knowing it was their last time together, was a gift that they'll treasure forever. But the story of Ozzy's farewell shows us something really important about the power of music and the connection between artists and their fans. Ozzy wasn't perfect, and he would be the first person to tell you that. He battled addiction, health problems, and made plenty of mistakes throughout his life. What made him special was that he was real. He didn't pretend to be something he wasn't, and he didn't hide his struggles from the world. Instead, he took all his pain, all his challenges, and all his experiences, and he turned them into music that helped other people deal with their own problems. Think about it. How many people have felt like outcasts or misfits at some point in their lives? How many people have struggled with feeling different or not fitting in? Ozzy's music spoke to all those people and told them they weren't alone. His songs gave them strength and made them feel like being different was actually okay. Black Sabbath didn't just make music. They created an entire new style that inspired countless other bands and musicians. And when Ozzy went solo, he kept that spirit alive and showed that you could overcome any obstacle if you refused to give up. The funeral procession in Birmingham wasn't just about saying goodbye to Ozzy Osbourne, the rock star. It was about thanking him for showing the world that a kid from a poor family in a rough part of town could achieve absolutely anything if they believed in themselves and never stopped fighting for their dreams. Even though Ozzy is gone, his influence will never disappear. His songs will keep playing on radios and streaming services. New generations of musicians will discover his music and be inspired by it. Young people who feel like they don't fit in will hear Crazy Train or Iron Man and realize that being different isn't something to be ashamed of. The procession on July 30th wasn't really an ending. It was more like a victory lap for someone who had lived life on his own terms and had given everything he had to his fans and his music. When that hearse rolled down Broad Street with thousands of people cheering and a brass band playing, it was a reminder that some people live lives so meaningful that their death becomes a celebration. Whether you were lucky enough to be there in Birmingham, or you watched the live stream from somewhere else in the world, being part of Ozzy's farewell meant you were part of music history. You were there to honor someone who had changed the world through the power of his voice and his refusal to give up. Ozzy Osbourne, the Prince of Darkness, the kid from Aston who became a legend, the man who bit the head off a bat and sang his way into our hearts, got exactly the kind of send-off he deserved. It was loud, it was proud, it was emotional, and yes, it was a little bit crazy. But that's exactly how Ozzy lived his life, and that's exactly how his fans wanted to remember him. So the next time you hear Paranoid on the radio, or Crazy Train comes on your playlist, remember this story. Remember that behind those incredible songs was a real person who struggled, who fought, who made mistakes, and who never gave up on his dreams. Remember that an entire city stopped what it was doing just to say thank you to one of their own. And remember that no matter where you come from or what challenges you're facing, you have the power to turn your pain into something beautiful, just like Ozzy did. If this story touched your heart the way it touched mine, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and share your favorite Ozzy Osbourne memory. Maybe it's the first time you heard one of his songs, or a concert you went to, or just a moment when his music helped you through a difficult time. I read every single comment, and I'd love to hear how Ozzy's music impacted your life. And if you enjoyed learning about this incredible farewell and want to hear more stories about music legends and the amazing things that happen when the world comes together to honor them, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. We're building a community of people who love music and the incredible stories behind the artists who create it. Don't forget to ring that notification bell so you never miss a video, because we're always working on new content that celebrates the power of music and the amazing people who make it. Until next time, keep rocking, and remember that legends never really die, as long as their music lives on. Rest in peace, Ozzy. You earned it.